As we reach the end of this console life cycle, it's a good time to look back and remember the most influential games of this generation. The games that pushed the medium forward and set new bars for their peers to reach. Assassin's Creed is among these games. It made us think of new ways to interact with environments and new places in which to tell stories. It set the standard for animation, combat, environment design, and butchering men of the cloth. And with Assassin's Creed 3 just around the corner, what better opportunity to take a trip back in time? And we don't even need a stupid magic machine to do it.
Plus, it gives me an excuse to introduce my favourite piece of promotional clothing to the show's strict t-shirt rotation. Look, it's got a hood and everything. I look like an assassin.
When the first Assassin's Creed hit store shelves in November 2007, it was truly a breath of fresh air. From a thematic standpoint, we'd never really played anything like it. This was a game set in the Holy Land around 1190, during the time of the Third British Crusade. It was an open-world action game that took place across three ancient cities, Damascus, Acre and Jerusalem. It had a plot that wasn't scared to talk politics, religion and economics, and your character was a Syrian orphan with an Arab name, Altair ibn al-Ahad. In terms of gameplay, it made real innovations. Though the mission structure was fairly rigid, the cities were vast playgrounds you were free to explore. Altair was capable of climbing practically anything and could free run across rooftops with ease. Groundbreaking crowd dynamics allowed you to move through the busy streets realistically and use the city's inhabitants to your advantage. As Altair, you were tasked with assassinating 9 individuals across the Holy Land. Missions in the first game were much more heavily structured than its sequels. Upon arriving at one of the 3 cities, you met a member of the Brotherhood who gave you access to a safe house. The next few missions involved reconnaissance of a given target using eavesdropping, pickpocketing and interrogation, and each of the 9 missions culminated in you using your skill and acquired information to assassinate the target. Outside of the main missions, there were bunches of side missions and objectives such as climbing on top of various vantage points and collecting flags. The game's health and moral systems were covered by a clever synchronization mechanic which depleted as you did things that weren't accurate to your ancestor's life. Things like dying and going on murderous rampages.
You know, your ancestors, because you're inside the Animus. Oh, we haven't talked about Desmond yet.
Who is Desmond?
When I completed the first game, I remember thinking, that was fantastic, but why all the Matrix bits? The reasons for it are obvious. It's a wider narrative that ties together the actions of each game in the series, and when I asked on Twitter, it seemed a lot of you actually enjoyed it. But this is one of these things about modern games that really irks me. Too many games are written to be series, to create a universe in which games take place, and a reason for you to care about the next installment. Assassin's Creed was a perfect example of a series that could release unconnected games in the same universe. Different eras, different locations, containing different characters with different motives. You see, Assassin's Creed isn't really a game about being an assassin, it's a game about being Nolan North plugged into a magical machine called the Animus that allows this barman called Desmond to tap into the memories of his ancestors. He's been captured by a company called Abstergo, who wish to use his memory to find the locations of pieces of Eden, artifacts left by the creators of humanity that are dotted around the globe. So gods, or probably aliens. Oh, and Abstergo are actually Knights Templar and the moral enemies of the Assassins. All of it fluff and completely surplus to requirements in my opinion. It forces each game to have 2 protagonists, adds narrative baggage that will inevitably hamstring future games, and means you never get a fully satisfying resolution in any individual game.
Wait! I have so many questions!
When video game storytelling is so rudimentary, it boggles my mind why somebody would want to tell such a weak story over the course of nearly a decade. The best games let you experience as much of the wider story as you want, or even better, tell simple stories well. Stories like get out of the test chambers, walk to the mountain, and you're a square. The first game wasn't so bad, but with each addition to the series, it's got hammier and hammier.
But I'm just one guy.
Sometimes, that's all you need.
Okay, except a bit in 2 where Minerva ignored Ezio and spoke to Desmond directly. That was pretty cool.
Who is Desmond?
Alright, I digress. Back to the stabbing.
Assassin's Creed 1 had 2 portable spin-offs, Assassin's Creed Altair's Chronicles on the DS, which had 2 new cities, Aleppo and Tyre, the PSP game Assassin's Creed Bloodlines, which takes place right after the events of the first game, while the second DS game, Discovery, sees you travel to Spain as the protagonist from the second game. Set 300 years after the first game, Ascari 2 takes place in late 15th century Italy as you mind-jack into Ezio Auditore di Firenze, a Florentine nobleman with a taste for mischief and women.
I'll kill you!
After most of his nearest and dearest are wrongfully hung by a corrupt official, Ezio assassinates him before fleeing Florence to their family's Tuscan villa where he learns of his assassinating heritage. The rest of the game takes place across Venice, Florence, Forlì, San Gimignano and the Tuscan countryside as you attempt to rid the region of the influence of the Templar Borgia family. It added a much more dynamic mission structure with far more varied activities, roughly 200 missions, half of which are optional side quests. You could now disarm enemies, blend into any group of civilians, swim, use eagle vision in third person, have doctors patch you up, purchase shops and get discounts, and use a wheel-lock firearm to kill enemies at range with a bang. The game featured a cast of real-world characters: Leonardo da Vinci, Niccolo Machiavelli, and Rodrigo Borgia, later known as Pope Alexander VI. In the real world, Desmond and the Planeteers learn of an impending cataclysm and flee the reach of Abstergo to fight again. Assassin's Creed 2 was a fantastic game which established a formula that has been used since. The final level sees you embark on a mission to the Vatican, a tiny window into its wonderful direct sequel. Brotherhood continued the story of Ezio as he travelled to the frankly massive Roma to rid the city of its corrupt Borgia influence. Brotherhood introduced the ability to recruit male and female citizens to be assassins, which could be sent on missions around Europe, or call for their support during missions. The combat in Brotherhood was faster, horses could now be ridden around the cities, and you could destroy influential Borgia towers and scale dozens of recognisable landmarks. Brotherhood also introduced multiplayer because every game felt like it needed to around late 2010. It fits into the wider narrative as a Templar training program at Abstergo's headquarters. In it you were assigned an assassination target while another player targets you. With a good bunch of players it can be incredibly fun, though more often than not it was easy to spot players from their AI counterparts. Meanwhile, Desmond and the Ninja Turtles are set up in the 21st century Tuscan villa and using Ezio's memories to locate the Apple of Eden. When Desmond touches it, a hologram of the goddess Juno takes control of Desi and stabs Lucy in the abdomen, killing her and putting him and the series in a coma. Revelation, the third and final core game in Ezio's trilogy, takes place in said coma, both literally and metaphorically. The Ezio segments take place in Constantinople and feature much of the gameplay from Brotherhood with a few notable changes. Horse combat was removed, a hook blade and craftable explosives were introduced, as was an awful tower defense game.
And as Johnny showed us last year, you can use a combination of coins and bombs to make an impromptu dubstep party.
While in Coma Land, Desmond, accompanied by a previous Animus subject whose mutterings were briefly mentioned in the previous game, attempts to find a connection between Altair and Ezio, and to duct tape his mangled brain together. Eventually, Ezio discovers Altair's Apple of Eden in Masyaf, the starting point of the first game. But realizing he is but a conduit for a message, he expresses hope that Desmond can use the information he and Altair fought to uncover to find the truth behind the objects. As he does so, Jupiter appears and informs Desmond that the central data vaults located in New England has the key that will save Earth from a second impending solar flare. Yeah, not even joking. Now imagine how good the games would have been without D-Bag and the Power Rangers. So that's where we're at. Connor's part in the story takes place during the American War of Independence in the late 1700s and is sure to take the most popular elements from the previous games while adding a few tricks of its own. What's yet to be seen is whether this will be a disappointing iteration like Revelation or a revelation like 2 and Brotherhood.
So what's your favourite Assassin's Creed? Have you played all the games in the series? And are you looking forward to Assassin's Creed 3, the third Assassin's Creed game? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And that's it for Season 3 of Escape from Ren Stupid, folks. Thank you very much for joining me on this epic 10-episode quest. We'll be back sometime next year with a new season, but for updates on what I'll be doing next, feel free to follow me on the Twitters. Who knows, might be a new season of Secret Code, might be something brand new. When I know, you'll know. Oh, but fear not, more great programming coming from GameSpot.com. We're swapping out the Irish guy for a Scottish guy and the stupid clothes for science. That's right, folks. The What If machine is getting turned back on.
think it's very possible that we could genetically modify humans.